Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Futures, the podcast for B2B marketers sponsored by AdSact, the B2B ad platform. Today we are tackling one of the most provocative debates in marketing right now, which is AI versus brand. As algorithms get smarter and automation takes over execution, does brand still matter, or does human creativity finally have to prove its value? We'll look at what AI can't replicate and where marketers will need to evolve to stay relevant by 2030. Joining me today, we have an amazing panel, and I would love to hear a little bit about you. So, Maud, would you like to start a given sentence on yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joachim. I'm Maud Wolkowiak. I'm based in the Netherlands and I'm working at Aon as the EMEA Head of Growth Marketing for Industry Verticals.
Thank you so much, Maud. Dorothea, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Dorothea Gam, and I'm the CMO at Mouselo, which is a website user behavior analytic software.
Awesome. Welcome. And Sharon, welcome.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks, Joachim. So I'm Sharon Forder. I'm a fractional CMO. So I've been doing some fractional work, just coming off of a project with Sana Commerce in the B2B e-commerce space.
Amazing. Thank you so much for those introductions. Let's begin with how AI is showing up in your day-to-day work. What are one or two specific ways AI has changed how you or your teams work?
So one of the things that we've been working on from a project perspective with Sana, so I've been working with Sana for the last 12 months, and part of what I've been doing is helping to build their revenue engine. So really building that alignment between sales, marketing, and the SDR team. And in that, we've kind of ripped up the playbook in the context of how we have built the roadmap for what a revenue growth engine needs to look like. And that gave us the opportunity to start to really play with how we utilize and embrace AI in the team. So as a CMO for them, I was owning marketing, the SDRs, and also revenue operations, which gave me the unique opportunity to have that full vision over not just marketing, but that kind of end-to-end process. So some of the things that we've looked at are SDR agent. So what's the role of an SDR agent and how do you use agentic AI to start to streamline and maybe improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of what your BDR or SDR team is actually doing? We've also started to look at how we utilize AI in that context to think about how we can evolve it to pre-qualify some of the requirements that we have before we do a handover moment to either the SDR or also sales. And then the more traditional context in the sense of sort of the whole content engine and looking what we do with content. You know, we ran a couple of sort of hackathons internally in the team to try and get the team to get more comfortable with how they use AI and coming up with alternative ways that they can think about how AI can work in their role. And one of the things that the demand gen team came up with was a way of being able to reduce copy approval. So the speed within which we can actually get campaigns and content through approvals. And we managed to reduce copy approval times from 4 weeks to 3 days. So there's some great examples of some of the things that we've done probably in the last 3 to 4 months rather than over the last 12 months to really think about how you can utilize AI in the context of marketing, not just for traditional, we use ChatGPT to help us with copy and brainstorming, but alternative ways that we can lean into some of the agents that are coming around and think about it in the context of the broader sort of end-to-end marketing growth engine that you might be looking to build and drive.
That's great.
I really like what you're saying, Sharon. This is exactly what we're in now as well in this process of end-to-end, thinking about the whole process itself and the journeys that each of those, I would say, different type of functions can have. But I think agents in that way can help a lot. In my role, I'm responsible for industry verticals and really helping a lot in the bringing the narrative more from an industry lens. We have a lot of insights and data, which is great, but the way that we want to go to market with some of the insights is, of course, not always sophisticated enough. And now we have AI and we can definitely weave in more and more of the insights into also bringing it more with the industry lens and the narrative. And I think actually what I like you hearing is what I like you to maybe give me some more context is how you've worked with the sales team then in that way, because I think that is really a key thing, of course, what we see happening now in this sphere as well. There's so much possibility, but also what is the impact? What is it actually that we're doing? We can create so much more content, but is that necessary? What is it actually that the business needs from us? I think it's also a shift going on here. And for me, AI allows me to more the creativity and really removing some of the operational burden that you normally would have, and really just like switch that off, that whole button, and move into what it is that we can improve on from a function, from a process, from the end-to-end thought, from really the outside-in approach. And yeah, I like what you said, and I'm very curious to find out more about your whole sales marketing like alignment. That is really, well, interesting to hear more about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I did when I first came on, so the business had already gone through a process of starting to lean into understanding a bit more about its ICP. So some work had been started to really rationalize that down to enable us to start to lean into a little bit of the whole idea of, and it's not new now, but sort of account-based marketing. I kind of turned that into more, let's lean into account-based experiences. And so really looking at sort of planting the notion that actually we know that we've got a lot of clarity on accounts we want to go after. We know where we can win. And the company's been around for 20 plus years and has got an actually really solid base of customers. But they've been very sort of all over the place until about a year before I joined. And they were narrowing that down. So with that lens, it was like, okay, let's lean into that even harder. Let's start to get an understanding of where we actually win and where we can play. And with that, then one of the things that I first said is, what became really clear is they were talking in the business about funnels, and we all talk about funnels in marketing, and everybody had different funnels. There was miscommunication, there's misalignment in terms of understanding. And I was like, right, funnels are dead. Let's shut the funnels down and let's switch to a language that's all aligned around the customer experience and the customer journey. And how do we work effectively to be able to move accounts and also contacts associated with accounts at the buying cycle to become our language and our narrative? And how do we work collectively as a team with a sort of almost a pod experience of marketing, a BDR and an AE, working in that environment to really look at how we can start to move accounts through, understand what we're learning, understand what we know, and then deliver more compelling experiences in terms of content, but also just how you create that emotional connection with those accounts as you go through that process. So it started off with seeding that language, and then we started to evolve it into rewriting the rule book. So really looking at the playbooks that we had in play, understanding, what was working, what wasn't working, and then how we create a new playbook that evolved to this new world of aligned around the customer journey and aligned around the experiences and where an account may be in that journey. And then we started a trial. So in December last year, we did a trial. We brought a small group of people together from across different geographies to really sort of work in that pod notion to bring the mindset of marketing, a BDR, and sales working together on a small set of accounts to really start to see where we would see traction. And that sort of, there was a lot of skepticism to start with, like, this, we've done this, we've tried this, we've done this, we've done the other. But actually we worked on it for a 6-week period. We said that's all they need to focus on. They've got 10 accounts each that they're focusing on. And in that 10 weeks, we actually managed to shift some of the mindset. We saw, for example, in some of the SDRs, a change from like 1% open rate to 25% open rate on their email outreach. And then they started to realize that actually leaning into this notion of working collaboratively, they could see the benefits of it. And then we kind of rolled it out coming through the rest of this year into a broader context. But a lot of it was workshopping, studying the context around the language, rewriting the rule book, but writing the rule book in collaboration with the sales leadership, and then sort of testing, trialing, experimenting, saying what's working, and then starting to iterate from there.
Wow, cool. Hey, Dorothea, any experience on your end as well?
Yeah, but I think this is well, I would say that from our end, what has transformed, you can say, currently in our jobs, and especially in my marketing team, we started what you are talking about, Sharon, with like building a more solid, I would call, bridge between marketing and sales, making it more seamless, making connections better. And I do also think from a future point of view that we'll see marketing roles being more and more part of that start of the sales, you can call it outreach, or usually, in the classical lead scoring system or funnel system, it turns out to be an MQL, you hand it over to sales, and then kind of goes from there, where this bridge is going to be more of a mutual connection. So I see definitely a lot of future in there, especially with AI agents that can help you also understand better and bringing basically these two departments even closer. I would say from our end, what we mostly currently have been used and really utilizing AI with is, I think for so many others, like the creativity, accelerating content, basic things that we spend maybe hours to do or weeks sometimes, completely basic things like proofreading. That suddenly you don't have to have necessarily a content manager or copywriter to go through all these things. So basically here, really being more productive in that sense. What we also use it a lot for is structural shift in that sense. So I would say it's not just a creative helper for us. We move very much from task-based execution, especially evaluation on rather we have campaigns or whatever, to be a strategic, I would say, feedback loop marketing for us. So, when we kick off with something, strategic and making sure that we prompt it correctly and so it's actually bringing us new ideas that we might not have thought of, to kind of continuous, basically, those everything from an ad to a campaign to a strategy, email campaign, a launch, whatever it could be, right? So I see those things that are really being really kicked off on our side, and we do also spend quite a lot of time on it. I do have every week, I do 30 minutes. I call it time out. It's AI time with my team. So we basically just take 30 minutes. They have a quick task. And the idea is not to specifically do something that needs to be an output for a company, but it's more to kind of get under the skin the use of using AI, but also especially for me right now to prompt it correctly, because prompting can take a lot of time if you don't do it right. And I think that we all try to do some kind of, prompt with an image, and then we're not precise enough in the beginning. And then at some point it starts to get, free arms in it, or suddenly there's a bird in the background that you didn't ask for. So what we have really seen with this prompting and exercise, the better you actually just spend 1 or 2 minutes more on the prompting, give it more details, then you actually also is speeding up the process than having to, I don't know, tell ChatGPT, please remove that arm. A person usually just have 2. Yeah. So those kind of things are some, basically one quick task.
I like that you do that with your team on a regular basis. I think what we've done initially within the whole global organization was a 20-day AI challenge, which basically meant that each day you got this prompt, and that you could work with that as an initial starting point, and also really to get people more like test and learn, just dip your toe in it and just get started. Because for some people, I think the barrier to start is quite high, and for others it's quite low. It really depends maybe also on a bit of your curiosity, maybe, and also
Definitely.
how you feel comfortable with learning new things. But once people understand how it can be applied in their roles and in their jobs and how it can benefit them, well, yeah, that's really then going to be like a catalyst for the enthusiasm. And I think also then you can teach each other a lot of things. I literally have this like document where I keep my sort of cool prompts that I can also share with others in a way, and then we can just have a chat like, hey, what is it that you experience when you want to do something like this, and this task-based prompting. I think this is really important also, to make sure that you're not the only one that uses it in a certain way, but more people around you also use it, because then it becomes more of a consistent way of working, and it's being adapted by the feedback loop as well. I think that's also one of the key things that I see happening now more and more. It's not only producing things, but also seeing what the results are. That's how AI can help us a lot. And then also doing something with these insights, because oftentimes we have all these analysis, but then we don't have enough time to follow up on it and improve certain processes or ads or whatever you want to put out there. I think that is really the nicest thing of AI, that it not only allows you to get those insights but act upon them.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that is interesting that you're talking about is we're sort of shifting from the traditional sort of content libraries to prompt libraries, and when you start to think about how you can utilize that in a way, you were talking more about how do we start to get that collaboration better between sales and marketing. It facilitates that, because all you can say is, here's some prompts that we're already using, throw it across the pond, or across the wall to either an SDR or the AE or a particular pod, and say, go play with it. You come back and present back what you're actually finding, what your learnings are, and share it across the teams, but also share it across your pods, because then you get that shared experience that's enhancing the prompt library, but they're also engaging with it. And that's where you start to get more of that sort of ideation happening that doesn't just come from marketing, it comes from within that pod creative team as well. And that's one of the things that we found when we did the pilot, was starting to get them to test a little bit with AI. They didn't do a lot at that time, but now what we're seeing almost a year later is there's so much more positivity around using AI, embracing AI, sharing information, and that knowledge sharing not just coming just from either marketing or the sales organization. It's the collective coming together to really collaborate around it. And that's, I think, really powerful and a really quick way to be able to get a win if you're in an environment that's sometimes a very traditional environment of sales and marketing are sort of oil and water and they don't mix.
Yeah.
It can really help to bring that collaboration together.
I feel like also using AI then and prompts, like proper prompts already as a tool within your whole marketing mix. I think that is something that we might have missed before, but I think internal activation, like colleague activation, needs to be also seen as, hey, we can use AI and helping them embrace it and use it. That also makes people more comfortable going to their clients with certain information if they know also how they can prompt and get some research done or prepare their meetings or get more information on a certain topic. I feel like that alone can make those people feel more comfortable in their roles. So we basically help them do their jobs better. And we're in the business of making better decisions. It's literally, we work with data and that's our key thing. You can also literally feel that how data can help you make better decisions. That's literally what I breathe nowadays, even more than I was aware of. But I think that's the key. If people feel more comfortable and they see the added value, they will use it. It's not something that you expect them to use and then they can tick the box. No, they actually want to use it because they see the advantage of it.
Yeah. And I think it's not necessarily just around how AI has changed the job. I think the other thing I would say from an AI perspective is AI has not just transformed the job, I think it's creating alternative jobs.
Exactly.
So if you're talking about information, data, intelligence, one of the things that I've seen, particularly in the time I've been working with Sana, is we're starting to move from this notion of search engine optimization, so SEO, to generative engine optimization. And that's findability, not searchability. And that's a radical shift, particularly in the mindset of marketing, in terms of how you embrace this new digital world that AI is bringing to the forefront. No one's perfected it yet, but it's definitely a different perspective in terms of how AI is continuing to transform the work that marketing needs to do, how they think about the role they have to be able. You talk about brand. How is your brand present in those AI engines? That means you're going to be found in that world.
That's the one thing that that's going to be new territory for sure. Because if you want to, if your brand needs to pop up in the way that AI is bringing information to people using it, it's going to be interesting what you need to do on your end then to make that brand consistency there, that the tone of your brand and the values that it represents is also reflected in how it shows up. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
I love where the conversation is going, because if you remember when I asked you at the beginning, like, what are one or two specific ways that you are using AI, and we have spent almost all the time talking about AI, of course, but also talking about processes, talking about sales and marketing alignment, collaboration, the language change from funnel to experience, creativity, proofreading, all of the concepts that maybe are not 100% related with AI, but are. And here is how I would love to link with the next section, which is about what are the competitive advantages in organizations today? Are the ones that are just using AI, or the ones that are making these processes and using AI in the smarter way?
I think that one of the competitive advantages.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. I think that one of the competitive I see with AI bringing is that you can faster understand what people are doing through maybe a massive pool of data. I do still think that you need the human side to understand the why behind it. So, but maybe things where you could have so much data, so much insight, so much analytic, and then you had to really spend quite a lot of time on figuring out, okay, what should be then the messaging out of it? What should be all these things? So kind of, again, that is I see one of the big, huge AI things currently, and I'm sure like just see what have happened through the last year. It's amazing, and it will also shift even more and be even more crazy over the next couple of years, I think. But that side of it is a massive competitive advantage for a company that is starting to utilize AI because they will be faster and moving faster. And it's not a secret. I mean, AI or not, if you're fast and moving on from a trend or whatever it could be from your industry or market, if you're first movers on things, it's usually a good thing when it comes to a competitive advantage.
I think linking to that, what do marketers still own and how do we get that from a competitive advantage perspective is we still own the why, we still own the emotion, the brand truth, how we create that emotional empathy and taking, in B2B, I think the one thing that B2B doesn't historically do really well that B2C does or consumer marketing does is think about the emotional connection and how you build that emotional connection from a brand perspective. And AI can't do that yet. It doesn't have that emotional intelligence yet. And I use the word yet because it's changing so quickly. But if you think about sort of, so we own the why, we own the story, the emotion and the brand truth, and the AI enables us to handle the how and the crunching and the processing of the data that you typically go through and take days and weeks to do to enable you to be able to find the data story, give you the answer, and then you connect it into the why that you can then sort of really give you that competitive advantage and do something compelling with it and turn it into something that emits an emotion and creates that emotional response. And I think that's the power that we have at the moment that AI enables us to do is the crunching, and then we can take the output and turn it into something that's meaningful with the lens of human emotion associated with it.
I really agree with that, Sharon. I think if you look at the world where everyone has access to the similar tools, I feel that originality and authenticity and creativity and also the ability to build trust and emotions, that will become even more valuable. And I think in essence, what you see happening now is going to be the biggest shift. Like if people don't feel that you are real because AI is really generic output and it's going to be really off brand, well, people won't buy anything from you anymore. I think it's really going to be key for each brand to be very much aware of also the ethical judgment and maybe also looking at it from indeed the emotional intelligence that you were talking about. Is that part of the output that AI gives and how does that reflect on your brand? I think that's going to be so important.
And
I think taking away that automated noise because I was a little bit cynical in the world of AI. I was like, I can spot AI written content a million miles away. And I did a test or 3 or 4 months ago with an AI tool, and they kind of challenged you to be able to go through and identify 10 sentences or 10 pieces of copy, and which were AI generated, which were human generated. And I was like, oh, got this. I got 6 out of 10. And I was like, how the hell did I get 4 wrong? So that's why I use that's the reason why I use the term yet in terms of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But I think the point is that there historically has been a lot of automated noise, particularly around copy. You could sort of spot something that's AI generated a million miles away. It's becoming less of the case because it's becoming smarter. But to your point, Maud, it's more about what do you actually take as a human being that you can apply that in human lens to that becomes your differentiator that at the moment the AI engine can't still learn enough of.
Yeah, I call it the emotional anchor that we need to remember within our brand, the messaging. We need to keep, I mean, as you say, Mode, also like we have the same tools. We can end up coming out with the same output for similar audiences. But if we kind of make sure that we keep our creative DNA, what our messaging, what our, basically our brand from the human point of view, that is but I'm also in the same way, like you also mentioned, Sharon, like, let's see in a couple of years if it can actually give that, because it can be empathetic right now, AI, but it can't give that, can't feel, and it can't create that cultural renaissance at this stage.
Yeah, and we discussed before the example of prompting. To do good prompting, you need a lot of clarity and almost telling, you need to imagine the world, the thing that you will receive from AI, right? And you need to envision that. And to do that, you need to be clear, you need to be structured, you need to have all the things that we've discussed before. And you don't do those things just by chance. You need to have sales and marketing alignment, all those processes, empathy, emotion, connection with your brand, things that we have been discussing that are so important. And then you can put on a prompt and then do things faster for you with AI, like an accelerator. But definitely you need to do the homework first.
But you can say that over the years, we're only talking about what, 2-3 years maximum that it started. What I can see, like in the beginning, if we did prompts, I think that a classic, empowerment, those kind of words that always came, you could immediately see if it was AI generated. And the more you kind of start also with gems, or you building your agents with the right branding, either tone of voice, creativity, messaging, it starts to be smarter and smarter, and actually can start creating output that is so close to what we as human probably would write. Because, then we also learn to say, please stop using the word empowerment. Please, those kind of words, because we know that is AI recognizable. You just have those. It's just so the more, as you say, more you prompt, more you kind of teach, more you build these agents. I think that
and what happened when everyone is doing things better and better and better, and everyone is looking human, although you are writing with AI, and maybe Sharon, if you run your test, you can't differentiate from AI written content from human written content, and the same thing with images and everything. How do you envision that world, and what's the role of a brand in that context?
I would say from a competitive advantage, you could, produce a lot of AI content, but where you become, not the same company as your competitor, is that you make sure that you prompt it, that you tutor it, that you make sure that you get that brand DNA in your prompts. And then that's for me the master key here as a human, that you need to ensure that, because also, of course, the output can be the same, but you could still, I think many things we see today, 80, 85, maybe 90% today is more and more AI created content.
But don't you think that brands will be defined by how it's interpreted by machines? Like literally the semantic clarity will be key, and consistency and the emotional resonance. I think that is going to be the differentiator, mostly because everything else is going to be similar. So what does stand out is literally related to emotions, to feeling, to your the brand trust, what I mentioned before. I really feel that is going to be the differentiator for lots of things. And also, when you look at the way that how you can use AI is similar for many of us, but then the rest will be defined by how your brand is showing up.
I think it's about the execution. So if you think about, from a brand perspective, pre-AI, if you were going through a brand project, and maybe you're working with an agency, the agency would go away, you give them a brief, they'd come back, they present to you 3 or 4 creative concepts and ideas associated with your brand and where you could take your brand. And you would say, I like a bit of that, bit of that, bit of that, blend it together and come back with some revised ideas. In today's world, AI can do that for you. But if you think about what happens next in that context, what's next is how you execute against it. So you can get that sort of sea of sameness from an AI perspective, but it's what you do next to be able to either prompt the engine to be able to give you some differentiation that accelerates the ability for you to have a template you can work with, and then you can refine it and put that human lens in to sort of think about your ICP, your personas, how you're going to emit that emotional response with your audience. That still a human being needs to do, because in principle, the human would know how to create that emotional response in a slightly more educated way than an AI engine would at this point in time. And I think it's that kind of blending that you start to see. In the agency world, AI can help you to really get to that place faster, particularly for a client or even for yourself if you wanted to use the AI on your own, to give you that sort of brand experience. But then it's how you and your team translate that into meaningful ideas, campaigns, creative that lands and resonates with your audience. And in a world today where your audience has actually made its decision, 80% of people have made their decision before they even come and raise their hand to you, it's even more important that you understand and utilize the power of AI to help you to know what's going on behind the scenes with your audience, to ensure that what you're putting out from a brand perspective is resonating with them at that time that they're making a decision and you didn't even know that they exist yet.
Hey, but don't you think then that we must design for both humans and AI agents nowadays?
Yeah,
because I think
I
that's
agree. Yes, absolutely.
They're gonna do some digging for you. So it's not only the audience that you need to keep in mind that is a human, but also the AI agents that gonna filter basically what we are gonna put out there. I think that's gonna be a really different ballgame.
I think also that, I mean, that there's no doubt that the human, I would say, check is super important to keep, the brand storytelling and uniqueness. I also see that for me in some areas within marketing where we kind of cover a lot. One thing is what the content, where we kind of keep the brand, maybe some of the things that we might start to either reinvest more heavily on other kind of type of content, or not even content, I would say like events. It could be, more keynote speeches, more of these like documentary that AI cannot just redo, because then you get the human side, you get that. And even though maybe on a keynote the presentation was helped by people, created by AI, it's still a human person who's actually delivering. So I think in the same way with much of our content, it's still that execution that you're talking about, Sharon. The delivery of it still needs to go through that human eye or perspective.
Agreed. And it's also still about creating experiences, whether that's an experience in a digital world or whether, to what you were just referring to, Dorothy, it's experience in the physical world. So, how you show up at an event, or if you do events yourself, how you show yourselves up at your own event is your differentiator. And I think that again comes into, you can do some blending, you can do some brainstorming. We should never stop doing brainstorming as humans and just rely on AI to do our brainstorming for us. You can do some brainstorming to get some embryonic ideas. You can use AI to help you augment and bring those ideas faster to something that you might want to bring to bear. And then it's like you execute against it. And I think that is also your differentiator. It's remembering that you differentiate in all areas that you choose to go to market through, whether that's physical events, whether that's in the digital world. And humans and AI today do have a role to play in being blended together, but also remembering that you've got different experiences, and it's what's the experience that you consistently want your end customer to feel when they connect with your brand, and therefore they connect with what you're having to say to them in your outreach.
Let's talk about what new skills or mindsets will marketers need to stay relevant by 2030. What will be a successful marketer of the next decade look like?
I think for me, I'm not sure I can completely say, will these roles still exist? But for me, the skills from that point of view, I don't think if you don't embrace it, you're going to be, as a marketeer, like left behind, in the sense you need to embrace it. I think that it's not a 15 minutes of fame. It is here to stay, and it will only just evolve, and it will only just be a thing that a work process tool, an extra, you can say, collaborator in our team. And maybe also some areas we'll see marketing agents coming in instead. But I still think that in many roles, you'll still need that human marketeer to, again, coming back to what we just said, validate some of the things that are being created either by our AI agents and so forth.
I think when you look at it, I look at it in two ways. You can look at the mindset that you need to bring, and that really needs to be like, you need to be curious. And I think we're all curious. The fact that we're talking about this topic sort of shares it all. But I think adaptability and critical thinking are also very much part of that mindset, and the willingness to experiment maybe also as well, because we will make mistakes by using certain tools wrong in the beginning. But I think it's just really feeling comfortable with learning new things and just allowing yourself to fail once in a while and get up again. I think that's part of how marketers in general oftentimes operate. I think the lifelong learning is definitely something that I embrace, and to stay ahead of technology and whatever it brings, and feel comfortable with that, and collaborating with both machines and with your team, the human team. So that might be more related to the mindset. But if you really look at the key skills, like the technical skills, I would say prompt engineering, data literacy, AI ethics, maybe also, and also really the ability to critically evaluate what AI output is. I mean, it's not always good. You also need to be very much critical in how you evaluate that as well, before you end up having a reputational damage to fix. And I think the last thing I feel that Sharon is also already doing a lot of is strategic storytelling. Like, you bring things more to life than an emotional setup. I think that's also how AI can help us a lot with, but that's definitely a skill that not everyone will have, and how to do that. And that's something that marketeers oftentimes, should create. Well, it's something that is part of your DNA, I hope.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the thing I sort of talk to my teams about when it comes to AI is lose the fear. It's going to stay, it's not going away. So don't be fearful of it, embrace it, be playful with it. Don't just take a prompt and just kind of all just share the same prompts, because then you're not accelerating your learning or it's learning. So be playful with it. Remember that actually that there's a lot of what it can do. You know, we've talked about building emotional connection. So I think from an AI perspective, AI can free you and therefore your teams from that sort of the mechanical side of marketing. It can do some of that heavy lifting for you. So
Yeah.
it gives you the time then to become that creative marketeer again. It gives you the time to then become and do the things that humans can do really well, which is build that emotional connection, build that context,
Exactly.
build that trust, and translate that into super compelling campaigns that you then are able to execute on. And I think that's how maybe in 2030, which is 5 years away, and who knows where IA is going to be in 5 years' time, but maybe over the next 12 months, marketeers need to get less fearful, embrace the tech, and become more playful with it.
And sort of being the creative strategist and part of data scientist and part of change agent, I think that's going to be key in our role, that we make the shift in everyone. But of course, you need to, I would always say, practice what you preach. You need to be that role model internally as well. If we want people to use AI in their way that they work with the clients, yeah, it's really not logical then that we don't use AI. I think it's really good that we are the front runners and try to really test and learn and iterate and, you know, experiment and make mistakes and fail. But we always get up, and that's the one thing that always is important for us as marketeers, is also we will just, you know, use all these new things, and once in a while you hit your what is it, like your head, or I don't know, it's something really intrinsically part of how I want to do my role, like do new things, be out there.
I also see that some of the skills some marketeers will have, depending on either the specialization within marketing, it will be broader because you suddenly have these AI either agents or help. So people, for example, who were more analytics, let's just say from a SEO front, will actually suddenly be able not to just understand the data, the analytics, and then give us the right keywords, but it will actually also be able to start. Okay, I actually have some ideas, and I can actually start a blog. I might need somebody else to get that more creative or storytelling, so it kind of brings it in. But you can suddenly, basically some skill sets will be able to be even more beneficial in a team because you can suddenly have multiple hats on in some different scales depending on what you do. I also think in 2030, it wouldn't surprise me that like 80% of our campaigns are basically being executed by AI. But that said, I still believe, and that's what else we just talked about, that the competitive advantages will still be 100% owned by this human-led creative direction, strategy, thinking, and this emotional clarity of it.
I feel like because we use AI, that frees up so much time for like the basic stuff that allows us to really focus on where we want to excel, where we want to show up really and having that impact. And I think that really will make my role a lot nicer. And I'm very enthusiastic about embracing AI even more. Having that said, I'm also very much aware of what my human addition means, and that is equally important. It's just really finding a fine balance between using AI and using your common sense and your creativity that is already in there. And I think that's what we also need to keep reminding ourselves of. AI is only as good as how you use it.
And
We use AI. AI shouldn't use us.
Correct.
I
Totally agree.
I say sometimes that at some point I'm not just leading humans, I will also be leading algorithms. Make sure that we go the right way.
Yeah. And linking back to the concept of a brand, I think we need to be clear that a brand is not a logo or an ad, is what people think about you. So that comes from real life, right? It comes from purpose, from values, your story, how you do things every day. So AI can definitely help with that, with either messaging, visuals, whatever, but it needs just judgment, empathy, the values that we've been discussing. So can definitely replace people who give brand a meaning. So, well, we are coming to an end. I want to to say thank you, Sharon, Dorothea, and Maud, for this great discussion. And thanks to everyone listening to B2B Marketing Futures. We'll be back soon with another conversation about the ideas, technologies that are shaping the next decade of B2B marketing. Until next time, thank you so much.
Talking